Hi everyone, welcome back to Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. My name's Alice and today I'm going to be doing the It's All Relative book tag by AJ Dunn, Reads and Writes. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Today I thought I would try the It's All Relative book tag, which was originally created by AJ Dunn, Reads and Writes. I saw this over on AJ's channel and I really enjoy the questions, and I've also really enjoyed watching this on Sandy's channel, Miss Reads a Lot, and I recently also watched it on Summer's channel, Cozy Reading with Quaker Cats, which is a channel I'm really enjoying at the moment. So, a couple of recommendations there. I will link all three of those channels in the description box down below. I really like the titles of the prompts in this book tag. I think they're great, so well done to AJ. I can't help but think with the title of this tag of the game that they play in Friends where the girls lose their apartment and one of their categories is It's All Relative. Anyway, let's get on with the tag, and there are 9 prompts today. And in this tag I'm going to be recommending 9 different books for the 9 different prompts, and they're all to do with families, the prompts. So prompt number 1 is Mamma Mia, which is one of my favourite films and musicals. A book with a mother character that is pivotal to the story. I couldn't resist choosing an Agatha Christie book here because it wouldn't be a tag without me mentioning Agatha Christie, and I've chosen the book 5 Little Pigs. Now, the reason I've chosen 5 Little Pigs for a book with a mother character pivotal to the story is because the mother character in this story, Caroline Crail, has already been convicted of murder and is already dead when this story begins. However, Poirot is asked on behalf of her daughter to reinvestigate the case years later. He revisits the crime and goes back to interview the 5 little pigs of the title, the 5 different suspects. I think that Caroline Crail is absolutely pivotal to this book, the mother character. It also happens to be my absolute top favourite Agatha Christie, so please do check this book out if you haven't read Agatha Christie already. It's got a really good mystery at the heart of it, and a really interesting mother character at the heart of it. I'm not just grasping at straws for this connection, but I do love the book 5 Little Pigs. Prompt number 2 is called Papa Don't Preach, a book with a father character you like or despise. Now, I've chosen, controversially, because this is a book with an orphan, I've chosen a father figure character, and this is a really favourite father figure character who I've only encountered this year, and it's in the book Anne of Green Gables, and the character is Matthew Cuthbert. He becomes Anne's adopted father, and I just absolutely love this character. He's so stoic and so interesting, but his love for Anne is so touching and wonderful, and I highly recommend reading this book if you haven't already, even though it is a children's book. Yeah, it's got a lovely father-daughter relationship between Anne and Matthew Cuthbert, and I highly recommend it. Number 3 is Brothers and Sisters, a book with an interesting sibling relationship. I have recommended this book elsewhere as well, but it's 26A by Diana Evans, and this is a book about identical twins, which is a subject I've always found very interesting. The identical twins in this are Georgia and Bessie, and they live in the loft in their house, and it's got quite a fascinating family dynamic in this one. It's not often that I read a fiction book and find it really touching and really brilliant, but 26A was an exception, and I absolutely love the story in this book, particularly the relationship between Georgia and Bessie. Prompt number 4 is It's Been 84 Years, which reminds me of Titanic. A book that you like that is multi-generational or chronicles a character's whole life. I'm going to choose another book that I've read this year for this one, which is Behind the Scenes at the Museum by Kate Atkinson. This book is quite different, but it is told by Ruby Lennox, who is the narrator and main character, and we do get the entire story of Ruby's life from conception right up to sort of her old age. Interspersed with those chapters, every alternate chapter is called a footnote, and it's about a different photograph that I assume Ruby owns. Through those chapters we hear the story of multiple generations of her family. Her mother, her grandmother, I think her great great-grandmother as well, and those are really interesting chapters. This is both a multi-generational book and it chronicles a character's whole life. I highly recommend this one, and I really enjoy Kate Atkinson's books in general. Prompt number 5 is called You Complete Me, a book with an interesting marriage as a central element to the story. I found this one a bit trickier to find something for, but I have decided to go with a book that I remember having several really interesting and complicated and at times horrible marriages in it, and that is the book Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty, which was also made into a brilliant TV series with Reese Witherspoon and Nicole Kidman, and also Shailene Woodley, Laura Dern. It's absolutely star-studded, and that has some fascinating husband and wife relationships in it. There's several couples, all a bit dysfunctional, some much more so than others, but that was a really interesting book with closely examined marriages that are central to the story. Number 6 is called Picture It Sicily, a book with an elder character, and I've chosen Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. I've also read this book this year, and it probably has just about edged it as my favourite Dickens so far, and I absolutely loved Pip's story in Great Expectations. You may be saying to yourself, this doesn't have an elder character in it, not like a really elderly character, but it does, and he's a side character, and he's one of my favourite side characters in Dickens. There's a character in this called Wemmick, who is a friend of Pip's. Wemmick takes Pip to visit his house, which he has set up like a castle. It's one of my favourite locations, definitely in Dickens, but probably in any book. It's so funny and so brilliant. And Wemmick has an elderly father who he calls the aged parent, or Aged P, and Aged P is one of my absolute favourite comic side characters in a Dickens book. So Great Expectations is worth a read on many, many levels, but the Aged P is well worth a visit, especially as you also will get to see Wemmick's castle. That is my elderly character. I don't know if I was supposed to pick a side character, but I don't care because I love Great Expectations. Number 7 is Friends with Benefits, a book with a found family or friends as family element. I wasn't sure what to choose for this. There's lots of books that I like that have friends as family type of elements, but none of them were really springing to mind. And when I was looking at my bookshelves, I thought it's got to be this one because I just love the relationships in it, and that is About a Boy by Nick Hornby. This is a great book. It's also had a pretty good adaptation made of it, and the central friendship in this is between a 12-year-old boy called Marcus, who has a very troubled mother, and a 36-year-old man called Will, who has no desire to date said mother, but ends up somehow in a friendship with Will. And I think that their friendship is just so interesting and supportive and funny. If you've never read Nick Hornby, definitely check out About a Boy. Also, one of my favourite books of all time is High Fidelity, one of Nick Hornby's other books, and I love Fever Pitch too. Yeah, there's a lot of different characters in this book, About a Boy, but the central friendship between Will and Marcus is really lovely, so definitely try this book if you haven't. Prompt number 8 has got one of my favourite titles, I Think We're Alone Now, which is one of my favourite cheesy pop songs from the 80s. A book with a character who was lost, left behind or abandoned can also be a story with an orphaned or adopted character. I've chosen How I Live Now by Meg Rossoff, and this involves Daisy, who is 15 years old. She doesn't have a mother, and her father has sent her for the summer to live in the English countryside with cousins who she's never met. That's what it says on the blurb. She does live with her cousins, but by a sort of apocalyptic event, she ends up separated from the cousins. I don't think she ends up completely alone, but I would describe her as lost or left behind. I found this book quite emotional. I don't think I read it at a particularly good time because I read this right at the start of the pandemic when everything did feel quite apocalyptic. So it wasn't the best of times to read it. It made me quite sad, but it's a really good book. Very moving. Not maybe as good as some of the dystopian type post-apocalyptic fiction I've read, but well worth a read nonetheless. And there's some very strange relationships in this one for sure. Question number 9. Harry, you are actually right on cue. How did you know? Question number 9 is Fur Baby, a book where a pet or animal is part of the family and plays an important role in the book. How did you know we were up to the Fur Baby part? I promise I didn't set that up. I've been trying to get Harry to come into videos all day. He hasn't been interested and he's chosen that moment to appear completely by himself. Are you a very clever cat? We're about to talk about pets. So as Harry's here, I'm going to talk about a cat book first. I didn't know if this was allowed for the prompt because it's actually non-fiction, and it's not necessarily this particular book, but there are 4 books by Tom Cox all about cats. This one's called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. In these 4 books, Tom Cox writes about his many cats that he has, and they are just so funny. There's so much personality in these and they're so well written that I highly recommend these books to everybody. They're totally unlike any other cat books that I've read. I have also picked a fiction book just in case non-fiction was not the right thing, and I think we've got Harry's ears on camera at the moment, but that's okay because we're talking about fur babies. So yeah, definitely check these out if you love cats. They're very funny and irreverent and a bit sweary, but very enjoyable. And Tom Cox is an absolutely great writer. The second book I've chosen for this is fiction, and it features a dog. So that is The Last Dog on Earth by Adrian J. Walker. The Last Dog on Earth is another book featuring an apocalypse, although this one's set in a post-apocalyptic time, although we are told a bit of it in flashback. And the main character, and also at times the narrator, there's 2 narrators, is a dog called Lineker. And Lineker's a very funny narrator, very sweary too, and just writes like you imagine a dog would. And it also is about his owner Reg, and together they end up going out of their comfort zone on a bit of a trek across London to try and get to a safer place. And yeah, they do end up separated, so I won't spoil that book, but suffice it to say that the animal is very central to the story, and I absolutely loved the character of Lineker. He was a very good dog. So those are 2 books for the Fur Baby prompt, 1 fiction and 1 non-fiction. That brings me to the end of the It's All Relative book tag. I've really enjoyed talking about books with different relationships in them, and I hope that you found a book that you would like to pick up. I realise that my selections are a bit different from some other people's for this, because I do read a lot of crime and I do read a lot of dystopia or post-apocalyptic fiction, but hopefully you've heard about some books that would interest you. That's all from me and from Harry, who is sitting across there staring at me and getting his ears in shot. Thank you for coming in the video when we said fur baby, Harry. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll give it a like if you did, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Please leave me a comment if you've read any of these books or would like to. I'd love to hear from you, and I appreciate all your comments as always. I hope you'll all join me again soon for another video all about books here on Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Bye for now.